Hello, students. As we go through these documents today, we're going to be taking a closer look at a major event within the colonies in the late 1600s, which is the Salem witch crisis in Salem, Massachusetts. And we'll see this event in which accusations of witchcraft go flying through the town of Salem. And unfortunately, many people are found guilty and executed. And we're going to take a look at what leads up to these accusations. We're going to have the opportunity to look at a few primary source documents as well as a few secondary source documents. Ultimately, what you're going to be asked to do is, considering the background information and the sources, what caused the Salem witch crisis in 1692. We have a little bit of a background reading here, so I ask that you have a highlighter out. What we'll be looking for as we read through this is main ideas that are jumping out at us. The Salem witchcraft crisis began during the winter of 1691 through 1692 in Salem Village, Massachusetts, when Betty Parris, the 9-year-old daughter of the village's minister, Samuel Parris, and his niece, Abigail Williams, fell strangely ill. Okay, so that seems like the first main idea, right? This is kind of prompting the crisis. So with Betty Parris and Abigail Williams falling strangely ill. The girls complained of pinching, prickly sensations, knife-like pains, and the feeling of being choked. In the weeks that followed, 3 more girls showed similar symptoms. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and also highlight their symptoms here. Seems like another big idea, main ideas, we're identifying these. Reverend Parris and several doctors began to suspect that witchcraft was responsible for the girls' behavior. They pressed the girls to name the witches who were tormenting them. The girls named 3 women who were then arrested. The third accused was Parris's Indian slave, Tituba. Under examination, Tituba confessed to being a witch and testified that 4 women and a man were causing the girls' illness. All right, so this definitely sticks out to me as being a main idea, the fact that we see a confession. So it seems like if you would confess that you'd likely be guilty of a crime, but I'm wondering if there's any reason why a person might confess even if they were innocent. The girls continued to accuse people of witchcraft, including some respectable church members. The new accused witches joined Tituba and the other 2 women in jail. The accused faced a difficult situation. If they confessed to witchcraft, they could escape death, but would have to provide details of their crimes and the names of other participants. On the other hand, it was very difficult to prove one's innocence. The Puritans believed that witches knew magic and could send spirits to torture people. However, the visions of torture could only be seen by the victims. The afflicted girls and women were often kept in the courtroom as evidence while the accused were examined. If they screamed and claimed that the accused witch was torturing them, the judge would have to believe their visions, even if the accused witch was not doing anything visible to the girls. Between June and October, 20 people were convicted of witchcraft and killed, and more than 100 suspected witches remained in jail. All right, so let's go through the last 2 and identify maybe some big ideas here. The fact that the accused faced a difficult situation. So there's an incentive to confess. You could avoid the death penalty if you confessed. On the other hand, you would have to, though, provide names. We can see how this would snowball into more confessions, more accusations. So one accusation leads to another as a person confesses, and they're expected to name names. The other main idea that I think I would consider highlighting here, if they screamed and claimed that the accused witch was torturing them, the judge would have to believe their visions. And then lastly, we have the fact that we have 20 people convicted of witchcraft and killed, as well as more than 100 suspected witches jailed. Okay, so that gives us some background. We'll take a look at our documents here. We're going to be examining 4 documents as we go through this. And again, ultimately, as we look at the written part, we're asked to explain what caused the Salem witch trials. So that's the lens that we want to have as we examine our 4 documents. So the first piece of evidence is evidence A. This is from a primary source. So let's take a look at our sourcing information. We have Cotton Mather. He's an important leader at the time, and he is considered to be an authority when it comes to witchcraft. In fact, he wrote like a textbook essentially about it. This is Memorable Providences Relating to Witchcraft and Possessions, from a discourse on witchcraft given in Boston in 1689. So just a few years prior to the Salem witch crisis. Cotton Mather was one of the most influential religious leaders in America at the time. So he's a key influential leader. Cotton Mather is talking about witchcraft, and let's take a look. In the speech below, Cotton Mather, an influential leader of the Puritans, argues for the existence of witchcraft. I will prove that witchcraft exists. Those who deny it exists argue that they never saw any witches. Therefore, there are none. That would be as if you or I said we never met any robbers, therefore there are none. I have two pieces of evidence that witchcraft exists. First, the scripture mentions witchcraft. So when it says the scripture, it's referring to the Bible. Secondly, many people have experienced the horrors of witchcraft. Okay, so the thing that's really jumping out at me is his arguments for the existence of witchcraft. When I'm thinking about how this relates to why the Salem witch trials occurred, how they were caused, the fact that one of the major leaders at the time is advocating for witchcraft being real and citing evidence would probably make people more likely to believe that it's real. And if you believe that witchcraft's real, you're going to be more open to the idea of an accusation of witchcraft, obviously, than if you didn't believe that witchcraft was real. So his evidence here is that it's cited within the scripture, within the Bible, and that some people have experienced the horrors of witchcraft. Let's take a look at evidence B. And we have another primary source document here. Below is the testimony of a teenager accused of witchcraft, Abigail Hobbs, on April 19, 1692. So it's actually courtroom testimony here. The judge: Abigail Hobbs, you were brought before authority to answer to various acts of witchcraft. What say you? Are you guilty or not? Speak the truth. Abigail Hobbs: I will speak the truth. I have seen sights and been scared. I have been very wicked. I hope I shall be better, if God will help me. What sights did you see? Abigail Hobbs: I have seen the devil. Judge: How often? Many times? Abigail Hobbs: But once. Judge: What would we have you do? Abigail Hobbs: Why, he would have me be a witch. Judge: Would he have you make a covenant with him? Abigail Hobbs: Yes. So this is an example of testimony that's actually given in Salem. So the fact that people are confessing, the fact that people are saying that they've seen the devil, this would have been very a dramatic time. There would have been spectators in the courtroom. They would have been seeing this. This would have been creating a lot of stir in the town. And we can see how this would contribute to the fact that people are believing these accusations. A confession is really compelling. Now, as we learned in the background information, it's possible to have a false confession, especially when if you confess, you know you're going to be punished much lighter than if you don't confess and are determined to be guilty. And proving your innocence is very difficult. And in our modern day court system, we have a presumption of innocence until we're proven guilty. But that's not necessarily the case in what they're experiencing in Salem. So the things that really stick out to me as I look at a piece of evidence B is her confession. She's saying that she's seen the devil. She's saying she only saw him once, and that the devil wants her to be a witch. So that would have been pretty compelling. And I think that this is probably testimony like this greatly contributing to not only the cause, but the spread of these accusations. We do have a couple of secondary source documents that I think also will help us kind of put everything together here. And these are kind of pretty interesting. We look at the piece of evidence C. This is simply a chart. And what the chart is showing here is the average size of the farmland going all the way back to right around 1640, and then past the Salem witch crisis going up to about 1700. And the average size of family farms in Salem. So this is showing the size of the farms in acres. Acres is a measurement of land. And then on this side of the graph, we have the year. So what we see is that the average size of the farms are increasing up to about the year 1660. And then we see a decline leading up to and going past the Salem witch crisis, which is occurring right here. Now, this is interesting. The chart is telling us that the farms are getting smaller. And that would kind of imply that there's some economics that are going on at this time, that people are experiencing some economic hardship, that maybe they're forced to sell part of their farm, or they're having to pay taxes or something like that, that's forcing them, that essentially they're not doing as well financially. If you're a farmer and your land is getting smaller, that greatly impacts your life. And we can see that the average size of the farms starts to increase when Salem's experiencing this time from 1640 to 1660, but we're seeing a really stark decrease, and it's leading up to the Salem witch trials, which maybe makes this connection that it's possible that whatever's going on in the economy to cause those family farms to get so much smaller could be possibly contributing to a dynamic that might lead to accusations of witchcraft. But let's also couple that with our piece of evidence and document evidence D here, which is a map of Salem Village. The map below depicts Salem Village on the left / west. So over here is the west. And this is Salem Village. And Salem Town on the right or the east. So we have the east over here, and we have Salem Town. So the Salem community is kind of split into these two parts, and this dashed line is separating it for us. Most people in Salem Village were farmers. So I'm going to note farmers on this side. And whereas most people in Salem Town were merchants and townspeople. And I'll note over here, merchants / townspeople. The residents of Salem Village had to pay taxes to Salem Town. All right, so we have taxes going from the village to the town. So the people essentially of the village are forced to pay money to the town. Now, we know that this might be causing, right, there's probably a correlation here between these two documents, right? If the taxes are problematic enough, if they're severe enough, if they're financially burdensome enough, that this might actually cause people to have smaller farms. Right, so maybe that's what's causing some of the farm decreases that we're seeing. And then also there's probably some resentment about being forced to pay these taxes. Right? People generally don't like to pay taxes. You're having some of your money taken away and given to somebody else. And especially as you're kind of living in these separate sides of the community, hey, that side of the community is essentially taking our money. So the map shows that most of the people who made accusations were from Salem Village. So that's really interesting. Okay, so most of the people that are making accusations are from Salem Village. And what we're seeing is they're noted as an A on the map. So they're an accuser. And then the D, this is a defendant, but this is like a defender of someone who's being accused. And then the W's are the accused witches. So what's really sticking out to me is the fact that most of the accused witches are in Salem Town and most of the accusers are in the village. So although it doesn't prove it, it makes it possible, this theory, that because of the economic scenario that's going on, there could be resentment from the people of the village, and that might cause them to do something like make a false accusation. So it is possible that the economic situation that's going on is contributing to these accusations, as we see that predominantly those who are accused of witchcraft are in this side of the town, this side of the community, and most of the accusers are coming from Salem Village. All right, so having gone through the documents, we're going to go through our written portions. In this section here, for each of the pieces of evidence, you're going to be describing it. So what is it? Like for the evidence A, that's the speech by Cotton Mather. So I would just write something like, this is a speech given by Cotton Mather. He is an important religious leader of the Puritans at the time of the witchcraft crisis. So according to this document, why did the people of Salem believe the girl's accusations? So for the evidence A, you're going to note something to the effect of, Cotton Mather points out that the scripture, the Bible, references witchcraft and that some people have experienced its horrors. And this would make people more likely to believe witchcraft and then consequently more likely to believe accusations. So you're going to do that for each piece of evidence. So what is it? A brief description, and then why it made the accusations more believable. So for A, B, C, and D. And then finally, on the last page, we'll be putting everything together using information from all 4 pieces of evidence. Write a paragraph in the space below that best answers the question, what caused the Salem witch trials of 1692? So you want to make sure that you're citing evidence from all 4 pieces. And it's okay if you want to pull out a quote and put it in quotation marks. That's a great way to do it as well. But go back to all 4 pieces of evidence, pull it all together, a nice detailed paragraph explaining what caused the Salem witch trials of 1692. I can't wait to see your responses. Bye for now.